Mercedes has been dealing with a serious problem ever since the preseason testing in Bahrain, an issue that has slowed them down significantly compared to Red Bull and Ferrari. The problem? Excessive bouncing on straight sections of the track, also known as porpoising. This was at its worst in Baku, where Lewis Hamilton visibly struggled with severe back pain after the race. He was even seen struggling to get out of his car. The situation has raised concerns across the paddock, with some teams calling for FIA intervention. The argument is simple. If a car's design is causing physical discomfort to drivers, it becomes a matter of safety. But not everyone agrees that rule changes are necessary. Red Bull team principal Christian Horner has been particularly vocal about the issue. His criticism became even more pointed after the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, where Mercedes managed to secure a third and fourth place finish. However, their result had a lot to do with Ferrari's double retirement rather than an outright improvement in Mercedes' performance. Baku's street circuit is notorious for its uneven surface, and some believe this may have exaggerated the bouncing issue. But there are other factors at play, and before diving into Horner's comments, it's important to understand what porpoising actually is, and why it has been such a headache for Mercedes this season. To understand why Mercedes is struggling, we need to go back to the regulation changes introduced in 2022. These new rules placed a greater emphasis on ground effect aerodynamics, which generate downforce by channeling air under the car through specially designed tunnels. When everything works smoothly, this creates incredible grip. However, if the airflow is disrupted, it leads to a rapid loss and gain of downforce, causing the car to bounce violently at high speeds. This is what we call porpoising. For Mercedes, the issue seems more severe than for other teams. Some experts argue that their unique design choice, ditching traditional side pods in favor of a slimmer bodywork, might be the root cause of their problems. Initially, this approach looked like a bold innovation, but as preseason testing progressed, it became clear that no other team had followed the same path. The question now is, was this an ambitious gamble that backfired? Red Bull and Ferrari, on the other hand, have managed to minimize porpoising. Their cars maintain stability on straights, giving them a clear edge in performance. Meanwhile, Mercedes is not only struggling for straight-line speed, but also losing valuable time as their drivers battle against the constant bouncing. Even Lewis Hamilton, a 7-time world champion with over 15 years of experience, admitted that this was one of the worst handling characteristics he had ever faced in an F1 car. This ongoing struggle has pushed Mercedes further behind in the championship. 7 races into the season, they are yet to secure a race win, a rare sight in the turbo-hybrid era, where they have dominated the sport for years. But is it just the car design that's holding them back? Or is there more to the story? Mercedes has 2 highly skilled drivers, Lewis Hamilton and young talent George Russell. However, despite driving the same car, the porpoising issue seems to affect them differently. Hamilton appears to be struggling more with the bouncing, while Russell has been able to manage it better. But why is there such a difference? One key factor is car setup. Before qualifying, every driver must finalize their setup, which includes crucial adjustments like ride height and suspension. Throughout the 3 practice sessions on a race weekend, teams experiment with different settings to find the best balance between speed and stability. Once qualifying begins, these settings are locked in, meaning no further changes can be made without incurring grid penalties. Russell seems to have found a setup that reduces the bouncing to some extent, while Hamilton's car continues to suffer from severe oscillations. Interestingly, despite being taller than Hamilton, which should theoretically make the bouncing more painful due to higher G-forces on his spine, Russell appears to be coping better. Yet even he admitted that the situation was far from ideal, stating that he was relieved when the race in Baku finally ended. As the issue persists, the question arises: should Mercedes drivers push through the discomfort in hopes of salvaging as many points as possible, Or is it time for the FIA to step in and enforce changes to improve driver safety? The debate is heating up, and it's not just Mercedes that's raising concerns. In Baku, nearly every driver on the grid voiced concerns about the physical toll of porpoising. They argued that the constant bouncing was not just uncomfortable, but potentially dangerous, with long-term effects on their health. Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff revealed that the majority of drivers agreed something needed to be done, except for one, Fernando Alonso. The FIA now finds itself in a tough spot. If they intervene and mandate technical changes, it could benefit struggling teams like Mercedes while negatively impacting others who have already solved the issue. Some experts warn that if the problem isn't addressed soon, drivers could face severe back and neck injuries, potentially forcing them to miss races. Even teams that haven't suffered as much from porpoising, like McLaren, are starting to acknowledge its impact. Daniel Ricciardo, after the race in Baku, admitted that he felt rattled by the extreme bouncing. This raised another important question. Was the issue track-specific? Street circuits like Baku are naturally bumpier than traditional racing circuits. So was the problem worse simply because of the nature of the track? Not everyone in the paddock is on board with the idea of new regulations, though. Red Bull's Christian Horner has been very vocal about his stance, believing that Mercedes is trying to pressure the FIA into making rule changes that would ultimately favor them. According to Horner, teams that built better cars shouldn't be penalized just because others missed the mark. Christian Horner made his stance crystal clear. He doesn't believe the FIA should step in just because some teams are struggling. In his view, Mercedes should take responsibility for their design choices instead of expecting rule changes to bail them out. He argued that if porpoising was truly a serious issue, Mercedes could simply raise their car's ride height. But there's a catch. Doing so would reduce downforce, making their car slower, which is something the team is unwilling to do. From Red Bull's perspective, Mercedes is playing politics. Horner even suggested that the team was exaggerating the problem to force the FIA's hand. His sharpest comment came when he hinted that Mercedes had instructed their drivers to complain about the issue as much as possible over the radio. This was seen as a direct reference to Hamilton's message during the Baku race, where he was heard saying, "Ah, my back is killing me." The tension between Mercedes and Red Bull has been boiling since the controversial 2021 season, which saw multiple clashes between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. The rivalry reached its peak after the dramatic Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, where Verstappen won his first title under circumstances that many still debate. Ever since then, Toto Wolff and Christian Horner have been at odds, exchanging sharp words through the media. With Red Bull now dominating the championship and Mercedes struggling, Horner sees no reason why the FIA should step in to help their rivals. But is he being fair? Or is this just another chapter in the ongoing battle between these two powerhouse teams? Red Bull has firmly established itself as the dominant force on the grid. Despite not always starting from pole position, the team has managed to win the last 4 races, proving that they have mastered the new ground effect regulations better than anyone else. Their car experiences little to no porpoising, giving them a significant advantage, especially on straights and high-speed corners. From Horner's perspective, Mercedes is trying to manipulate the FIA into making changes that would level the playing field. He knows that if Mercedes finds a way to fix their bouncing problem, they could quickly become a threat again. Even though Red Bull currently holds a comfortable 118-point lead in the Constructors' Championship, Horner is aware that the season is long and a resurgent Mercedes could shake things up. That's why Horner's criticism of Mercedes isn't just about the technical side, it's also a strategic move. By pushing back against any FIA intervention, he's ensuring that Red Bull's advantage remains intact. He doesn't want a repeat of 2021, where every race weekend was a fierce battle with Mercedes. But this raises an important question. Should the FIA intervene if a technical issue is affecting driver safety, even if it benefits one team more? than others? Or should teams like Mercedes be left to solve their own problems without external interference? The debate is ongoing, and as the season progresses, the tension between these rival teams is only growing. Whether or not the FIA decides to act, one thing is certain. This controversy isn't going away anytime soon. With the FIA now under pressure to make a decision, the battle lines are clearly drawn. Mercedes is pushing for intervention, arguing that porpoising poses a serious risk to drivers' health. On the other hand, Red Bull and other teams that have managed to design stable cars see this as an attempt to change the rules in Mercedes' favor. If the FIA steps in and enforces changes to limit porpoising, it could completely shift the balance of power on the grid. Mercedes might regain competitiveness, while Red Bull and Ferrari could be forced to adjust their designs, potentially slowing them down. But if the FIA chooses to stay out of it, Mercedes will have no choice but to find a solution on their own, something that could take time and cost them valuable points in the championship. For now, the controversy continues, and the rivalry between these top teams only intensifies. The season is far from over, and the developments in the coming races could determine whether Mercedes can fight back or if Red Bull will extend their dominance. What do you think? Should the FIA step in, or should Mercedes be left to solve their own problems? One thing is certain. This Formula One season is shaping up to be yet another dramatic and unpredictable ride.